Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, back with another video in our series on Woodsman's gear of the 20th century. And today we're going to talk about the Sphia 123 and a Sphia 123 clone, as well as a Sphia 123R. And the difference between the 123 and the 123R was a simple needle that moved up and down to clean the fuel jet. I'll show you that in a minute up close. But this was the first type stove that was really designed to be carried by backpackers.
Hey, I'm living good back in the woods.
It's very lightweight. Even by today's standards, it's not exceptionally heavy when you count the cost of carrying a fuel bottle with some of the more modern type stoves, other than a small alcohol stove. But for something that holds a lot of fuel and works as well as this does with the efficiency that the Sphia has, it's probably just as worthwhile a piece of gear today, in fact I know it is, as it was in the 1950s. But it was a very popular stove all during the 1970s, and there were other companies like SIG who actually made kits, cook kits, that could be carried, that were specifically designed for the Swedish Sphia stove. And we'll talk about that as well here in a minute. So let me give you an up-close look at the mechanics of this stove. The way this thing works is, when you heat up the tank, it actually creates a pressure. It pressurizes the tank and it draws fuel up into a vapor. And that vaporized fuel turns into your fire. So what happens with that is, and I'll just use this one as an example, what you would do is you have a small indention on the top of this stove. And what you do is you fill that with a flammable liquid, and that could be white gas. Some people also use denatured alcohol for that. And that heats up this, also heating up the tank and pressurizes the tank. What you want to do is you want to take the fuel cap off before you do any of that to equalize any pressure. And then you want to heat that up. And what happens when you do that, I'm just going to take a little bit of white gas here actually. Coleman gas works fine for this. And you can be really, really neat about this, or you can be sloppy about it like I am for this demo. But I saw a guy who just used a straw to dip into his tank and then put a little bit of fuel right there, and that seemed to work out really well. I'm just going to pour it in from the top. I'm not going to get crazy with it. I'm just going to put a little bit in there. And then all you would do at that point was you would take a lighter and you would light the stove right here at the bottom, just like that. And you're going to get a flame up and you think, oh my gosh, the stove's going to blow up. Well, it's not. And all you're trying to do is heat this tank up, and then you open the valve. And as the tank heats up, the stove will begin to fire, and you can hear it. I'll give you a close-up of it here. It sounds a little bit like a jet engine firing up. And then you just let this fuel burn down. And it takes it a few minutes to heat everything up and really get going well. But once you get it going, you can actually simmer on this stove. It's not a full wide open or nothing type deal. Once it starts drawing well and vaporizing well, you can turn it down to a simmer, or you can have it on full blast. And that thing is putting out an absolute ton of heat. It will boil this cup that comes with it in less than 4 minutes, and it'll boil about 2 cups actually in about 4 minutes of water. It's very, very efficient. It comes with a couple components. It comes with this piece here, which is just a housing that goes over the top of it, that you put the key through, and you drop the housing on top, just like this, and lock it down. And now you have a grill on top just like this to put your pot on top of. And it came with a handle for that pot, so take it off and put it on. It also had the ability to be able to spread these out this direction so that you could use a larger pot on there as well if you wanted to. And when you wanted to turn it off, you would just turn the key to the off position, blow out the flame, and let things cool down. And it was as simple as that. And then the cup that came with it actually acted as a cover for the whole thing. You just shoved your key up on the inside, drop your pot handle down the side here, just like that, into a slot, and covered it up, and you were ready to go and put it in your backpack. Now, the improvement to the 123R, as you can see, when I turn this fuel knob, a piece of wire comes up here, and it moves up and down. And what that is a cleaner for the actual fuel jet that screws into that. So you screw that fuel jet down, and of course the key comes with all the sizes, which is another great thing about this stove, is that all these nuts and bolts on here all had a key that fit them. Here, the same key you used for the stove itself. And that wire moving up and down would keep that jet clean so that it wouldn't get fouled up with soot and dirt from the fuel. So as you can see, this SFIA 123 and this 123 clone that I have here are pretty efficient as far as how they operate. It's not difficult to get them to fire up once you understand how to do it. I actually think it's probably around 42 degrees out here today, and it didn't take me long at all to get that clone to fire up. But I wanted to go over this stove with you because this is one of the classic stoves of the 70s that was used by backpackers and woodsmen. It also had some sets like this SIG tourist cook set that were made to go along with this stove, that were made by Swiss companies, although this is a Swedish stove, purpose made to fit components of this stove so that you had a cook set with pots, pans, and pot grabbers even back in the 70s, very similar to the nesting cook sets we have today. Okay, folks, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me today for a quick video on the SFIA 123. We talked about the 123R with the movable needle that cleans the jet, and the 123R clone. I think this clone was made in Taiwan, but again, it works just as good as the SFIA 123 and actually fires up a little bit faster from my experience. Maybe not as good a quality, but I'm sure that this one's at least 50 years old and it still works to this day. So be that as it may, both of these are very, very good stoves. You can still find these stoves even brand new. Optimus now owns SFIA, and they are selling brand new SFIA 123s that you can buy, and you can buy them used. The old made in Sweden original SFIAs, you can still find them on places like eBay and Etsy as well. Make sure that if you go to buy one of these, I would go ahead and spend the money to buy one that says it's in working condition or that's been fired and proven, because sometimes there's a little bit of fussing around that goes into making these things work if they're not operational when you get them and you don't have a lot of experience with antique or this type of camp stove. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.